Hi, Algebra 1. We're going to finish up looking at worksheet 7.4. We're going to work the rest of those problems that were assigned to you. And then the sub is going to give you worksheet 7.5, in which we are going to continue to go over as well. So let's get that worksheet out. Okay. So let's take a look at this one. Remember, we got to put a 1 out front if it's not there. So 1 times 12 is positive 12. Looking at all my signs in my problem, they're both positive, so I'm going to have positive there. So 1 and 12, would that add up to 7? No. What about 2 and 6? Would those add up to 7? No. What about 3 and 4? Yes. 3 plus 4 is 7. So they're both going to be positive. And I'm going to plug this in to right in between. Put my ends down. And then in the middle, whatever order I want, I'm going to put plus 3x plus 4x. And here's, I'm going to factor an x out, so I have x plus 3. Middle sign comes down. I'm going to factor a 4 out. Pull those out. And then whatever we have left behind goes in the other set of parentheses. Hey, somebody asked if, is this the same answer as above? Notice I flip-flopped them. And the answer is yes. Okay, so that just, you'll get one answer versus the other, and they're both correct, depending on if I had plugged in this to the middle first, that would have gotten the bottom answer. So they both are completely correct. All right, we're going to multiply these together. So I'm going to get 20 times 3 is 60, and that's positive. But notice I have a negative here. So in order to get a positive number one multiplying, they both have to be positive or they both have to be negative. Because I have a negative right there, I'm going to make them both negative. So 1 times 60, that's not going to give me 16. 2 times 30, that'll give me 32. 3 times 20, that gives me 23. 4 times 15, that's going to give me 19. That's not going to work. 5 times 12, that's going to give me 17. Getting closer. What about 6 and 10? Yes, 6 and 10 both work. So I'm going to have a negative 6x and a minus 10x. I'm going to plug it in whatever order I want. I'm going to plug that in for right there. So bring the ends down. And then plug that directly in. So what do I have in common between those two? I have a 3x. That's going to leave me x minus 3. Middle sign comes down. Factor a 10 out. That's right, so that should have been a 2 right there because I factored a 3 out. And then that's going to give me change the sign because I factored a negative out. Those are the same. And there's my answer. Okay, remember we have to put a 1 out front. So negative 10 times 1 is negative 10. In order to multiply two numbers together to get a negative, I need to have one positive and one negative. So if I multiply 1 times 10, I get that. 1 be a positive, 1 be a negative. That's not going to work. So then what about 2 and 5? I think 2 and 5 are going to work. So it's going to be a positive 2x and a minus 5x. If I add these together, that's going to give me the negative 3x. So I'm going to replace it there. So I'm going to bring my ends down. And in the middle, I'm going to put plus 2x minus 5x. I'm going to factor out an x. That gives me x plus 2. Middle sign comes down. Let's factor a 5 out of both. Change the signs. Those are the same. That's what you want. And then fill in the rest with your stuff behind. Taking a look at number 11, I need to put a 1 out front and multiply those together. So I get a positive 42. Remember, in order to get a positive number one multiplying, they both have to be the same sign. In this case, they're both going to be negative because I have a negative right there. So 1 times 42, that's not going to give me 13. 2 and 21, that's not going to give me 13. 3 and, let's see, that's a 1. And 3 and 14, that's not going to work. 4 doesn't work. 5 doesn't work. 6 times 7 gives me 42. If those are both negative, they're going to add up to that negative 13. So negative 6x minus 7x is what I'm going to plug in. Bring your ends down. Okay, so I'm going to get negative 6x minus 7x. What do I have in common there? I have an x, so I have x minus 6. Bring the excuse me. Bring the middle sign down. I can factor a negative 7 out of both of those, so the signs are going to change. So I get x minus 6 and x minus 7. And there is our answer. Okay, this is going to be due on Tuesday. Right when you walk into class, give this to me. And so you can get credit for it. The sub should have given you worksheet 7-5 now. So let's get 7.5 out. Okay. We're going to just go down and we're going to do all the even problems. So taking a look, this is going back to the factoring. So remember, this is x, 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 and this is y, 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 minus x, x, y, y. So what can I sub out of both? I have x, x over here, so x, x over here. I have y, y over here, so y, y over here. And so x squared y comes out. What do I have left behind? I have x, y squared. Everything factored out over here, so I have to have the minus 1. Number 14. So let's break these down. 12 is 2 times 6. 6 is 2 times 3. Then x, 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 x. 16 is 2 times 8. 8 is 2 times 4. 4 is 2 times 2. X, x, minus, and then I have 20. 2 times 10 is 20. 2 times 5 is 10. X. So let's highlight what we know. So I have an x, and that's all the x's I can factor out. I have a 5, but I don't have any others. I have a 2. I have another 2. And that's all I can factor out of this problem. So 2 times 2 is 4, and then x, and I'm left with that. So that's 3xxx, which is 3x to the third, plus 2 times 2 is 4, x minus 5. That's your answer. Number 6, these are the same. Remember, there's a 1 right there, and then whatever you have left behind goes in the other set of parentheses. That's all done. All right, now we want to start factor by grouping. Okay, so what do I have in common between those two? I have a 2 and an x, and that's going to leave me 2x minus 3 behind. Middle sign comes down. Factor of 5 out. That's going to give me x minus 3. So notice something, friends. Are these the same? They are not. This is as far as you can go when factoring this problem. Okay? So sometimes that'll happen, but that's, kind of the case. All right, so factor by grouping. So what do I have in common between these two? I have an x, so I can factor a 3x minus 4 like that. Middle sign comes down. What do I have in common there? I have a 2. That's going to give me 3x minus 4. So these are the same. And then whatever I have left behind is x plus 2. All right, these are kind of a riddle. This is sometimes people use this as factoring. Find two numbers and multiply for the top number. So we want multiply to get there and add to get the bottom number. So think about 12. One's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. So 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Which of those, one being positive, one being negative, would add up to the negative 4? And it'd be here. So I have a negative 6 and a positive 2. Those multiply to give me the negative 12. They add together to give me negative 4. Let's do the same thing here. I want to multiply to give me 20, add to give me negative 1. So I need one to be positive, one to be negative. So 1 times 20, that's not going to give me 1. 2 times 10, that's not going to give me -1. 4 times 5. 4 times 5 are going to work. We're going to have a -5 and a +4. So -5, +4. And that would get to that. So it's just a way of breaking down numbers and their factors. All right, number 16, remember to put a 1 out front, multiply those together, so that's going to give me -16. In order to get a negative number 1 multiplying, one has to be positive, one has to be negative. So 1 times 16, that's not going to give me that 6. 2 and 8, I think 2 and 8 are going to work. 2 and 8 are going to work, so I'm going to say it's got to be a positive 8x and a negative 2x. If I add those together, I get positive 6. So I'm going to squeeze that in, bring the ends down, and then plug those in, whatever order you want, but make sure you keep the signs consistent. I have an x in common here. That's going to give me x plus 8. This middle sign comes down. I can factor 2 out. So I'm factoring a -2 out, so I'm changing both sets of signs. These are the same. That's what you want. And the problem's done. Okay, number 18, I'm going to multiply this times this. That's going to give me positive 15. So it either has to be positive, positive, or negative, negative. But everything signs positive, so I'm going to go positive, positive. So 1 times 15 is 15. If I add those together, do we get 16? Yeah, you can stop there. Okay, so I'm going to plug in 1x plus 5x. That's going to go in right there. So bring the ends down and plug that in. So those are the same. You can pull one of those out. So you're left with 3x plus 1. The middle sign has to come down. I can factor a 5 out. Hey friends, are these the same? They are not. That's as far as you can go on factoring this problem. You can't go any further with it. Okay? So sometimes things don't factor, and this is a case it won't factor. All right, number 20. I'm going to multiply -27 times that, and I'm going to get -189. When I multiply two numbers together to get a negative, one has to be positive, one has to be negative. So I have 1 and 189. Well, that's not going to add up to that 12. And then 2 doesn't work because it's an odd number. So 3 and 63 works. I can't add those together to get there. Okay, so 4 won't work because it's an odd problem. 5 won't work because it doesn't end in 0 or 1. 6 probably won't work because it's even. What about 7? So 7 and 27, is that going to give me -12 or the positive 12? And the answer is no. So let's keep going. 8 won't work because it's odd. What about 9? What about 9 and 21? And I had to use a calculator on it. I just want 189 divided by 9 and found out the answer is 21. And I think if I combine those together, one being positive, one being negative, it's going to give me the 12. So I have a positive 21x minus a 9x. So I'm going to plug this in right here to that middle. So the ends come down, and I'm going to squeeze minus 21x, or positive 21x. So there's a positive there, I couldn't see it, minus 9x. So what do we have in common there? I have a 7x. That's going to give me x plus 3. Middle sign comes down. I'm going to factor a -9 out. That's going to give me, change all the signs, x plus 3. So I'm going to get x plus 3 and 7x minus 9. Number 22, I'm going to multiply those together. That's going to give me a positive 24. Notice I have a negative right there. So one has to be positive, or they both have to be negative. Because a negative times a negative is a positive. So 1 times 24, will that get me -11? The answer is no. 2 and 12 is 24, but that doesn't give me that. What about 3 and 8? Well, if they're both negative and you combine them together, you get negative 11. So you don't have to worry about the 4 and 6. So I'm going to have negative 3x minus 8x. I'm going to plug that in right there. So the ends come down. And then I'm going to plug those in. So I'm going to factor a 3x out of both of those. That's going to give me 4x minus 1. The middle sign comes down. I can factor a negative 2 out. Factor a negative 2 out of 8x, I'm left with 4x. Factor a negative 2 out of positive 2, I'm left with a negative 1. Notice the sign changed. So 4x minus 1, whatever I have left behind goes in the other one. Remember, you could also have this as an answer. Okay, this is totally fine for an answer. It's just wherever you would have plugged it in. So either answer is fine. You just have to give me one or the other. Okay. Last problem we're going to work. Multiply those together. That's going to give me a negative 60. In order to get a negative number when multiplying two numbers together, one has to be positive, one has to be negative. So I want these to add up to the 28. So 1 and 60, that's not going to work. 2 and 30 is going to work, isn't it? This works. So they're both, one's positive, one's negative. So I'm going to get a negative 2x plus 30x. So I'm going to plug this in to right there. So the ends come down. And I'm going to plug in what I have. Whatever order you want, just make sure the signs stay the same. What do I have in common here? I have an x, so that's going to give me 5x minus 2. The middle sign comes down. I can factor a 6 out of both of those. Those are the same, that's what you want. And there's your answer. Okay? So for the rest of the period, I want you to work on all the rest of the problems. Okay? So make sure you do 1 and 3 and 5 and 7 and 9 and 11 and 13 and then 15, 17, 19 and 21 and 23. Okay, this will be due on Tuesday. So make sure you get those done and make sure don't hand anything into the sub. So remember, for Tuesday when you come to class, right away you're going to hand in worksheet 7.4. Okay, the sub will have some extras, so if you need an extra one, make sure you let the sub know. And then also due on Tuesday is worksheet 7.5. Have that all done. Make sure you try it. You have plenty of time to do it. Have a great day. Please be good for the sub. Take care of one another.